Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Southside Beat here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Steelers YouTube channel and podcasting network. My name is Chris Halicke. Joining me, Matt Williamson. What's going on, my friend?
How you doing, dude? Almost combine. I'm psyched to see you in person, maybe have a cold one with you and do all kinds of stuff in Indy. Indy's a good week, man.
It is. It is one of my absolute favorite weeks, not just of the offseason, but of the year. It really is. Not just because of the just draft giddiness and getting ready, and you're getting your eyes for the first time on these guys, and everybody's talking about it. But you get man, like everybody's there. The entire NFL universe is there. We're talking GMs, head coaches, position coaches, scouts, agents. They're all there, and it's a ton of fun. Obviously, we all have fun too. In the media, it's not not just work. Sure. We play a little bit too, but even outside of that stuff, even amongst the play, is still some work being done. Because
you learn a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could be, mix it up at a sports bar with some people, and all of a sudden this agent walks in or that scout walks in, and you just talk and you learn stuff.
Awesome.
What are some? What
Not
kind
to mention, like you see, Jerry Jones's, like tricked out party bus is parked all over town. And I remember coming home from the bar one night and walking past Steak and Shake, and Andy Reid's in there double fisting cheeseburgers at like midnight or whatever. It's like, this is awesome.
It's good. It's good stuff. It's a good time. So I was going to say, what's one of the favorite things that you take away from Combine Week? Because I think it is a really big, like I say, I mean, outside of the draft, I would probably call this the biggest event of the offseason. Not only because, again, of the actual work that's being done, studying these prospects and getting a better feel for how somebody tests or the exact length on a certain guy or hand size on that guy. But again, the entire NFL universe is there. You get a chance to mix it up with, some position coaches or some scouts or agents, and you learn a lot of information. What's some of the things, or just one really awesome thing that you usually take away from it? Doesn't matter what year it is, that it typically happens every time that you're there.
Yeah. And my experience is a little different than others in that I don't really get any of the combine experience, because I'm on the air 5 hours a day for Steelers.com. I mean, basically between 10 and 5, I get very little break. And so I record all the drills and I come home and watch the combine, but it's almost like knowing that, Darth Vader's Luke's dad, because, Xavier Word, I already knew the times and all those things too. So I kind of focus on the drills, but it is cool because we're on the air when a lot of the stuff is published. And, we can react to it organically, or here's all the receiver weigh-ins and stuff. And I like to look at like the top 10%, the bottom 10%, who are the outliers here. But honestly, my favorite part is being on the air, because Matthew Berry walks by and I grab him. Greg Cosell walks by and I grab him, and we start talking Steelers or draft or anything. We always have high-end, really in the know draft nicks and national people that join us every year. Cynthia Freeland will join us, so just spending 15 minutes with them, even on the air, is great. And then you bump into the bars later, and, it's a different environment. So I love it. I mean, it's a good time.
So I want to get your perspective especially as a former scout too, because what is for anybody who might not know, what is the most important thing that you can take away from the combine, regardless of, I mean, we're not talking about, I need to see this guy's length or this guy's 40 or whatever it is. But just overall, what is the biggest advantage of having the combine still nowadays, especially when there are all the pro days, when there are pre-draft visits? Why is the combine still so important from a perspective of getting to learn the players better?
For the same reason it was created, which I think a lot of people in the media and the fans forget, the medicals. And unfortunately, me and you don't get privy to all that information, but we'll get some hints here and there. We get a little rumbling. Maybe he has a knee or blah, blah, blah. But it's one-stop shopping, as opposed, you bring all these players to Indianapolis, which is not coincidentally within driving range of like 18 different schools or different, NFL teams, when travel wasn't as easy 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a 5-hour, 6-hour ride from Pittsburgh. And it's also a great town for conventions in general. It's all flat and everything. You can stay inside if you want, and there's tons of space.
Easily
so I hope it never leaves.
City too. Yeah,
it's great for that. We park the car and don't move it for a week. And
I'm staying downtown this year. I found a great rate on a hotel like a month ago downtown, and so
you won't have to drive ever.
Yeah, it's like a 12-minute walk to the convention center. So I won't be driving.
That's so much better. You'll love it. But yeah, I mean, really, the best thing that comes out of this event, and sometimes worse, but most informative, and we only get 1/3 of the information, not even, is all the medicals, because every team doctor will be there. And it's a long ass day for those guys before they get to the drills. I mean, one thing I was fortunate enough to do, but it was kind of alarming, was the year I was with the Browns, I was a new scout, and that's kind of a new scout job, is I had to go to every room, get the tight ends in order to go to their next stop or whatever, like making sure they get out of their room, and they're grumpy and they barely slept. And, I don't hold that against them, but I was kind of mother duckling for the morning of get them all in a row and send them where they needed to be, to the bod pod or whatever, so, these guys are working on like 3-4 hours sleep, and they're nervous and grumpy and like that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think another thing that people need to understand also when you talk about the combine, and then probably take a break right after this, and we'll get into more of Steelers free agency, because that's still a thing that the combine plays a role into that too. Trust me.
Oh, no doubt.
But no, the other thing that I really want to highlight about the combine, and you can attest to this too, is that some people will take this as an opportunity, like as an event in which teams are really getting a good look for the first time at some of these players up close, and that's just not the case.
No. Maybe some of the coaches that are late to the prospect, maybe,
because
but they've definitely watched them on tape before this.
These are all players that teams, all 32 teams have already scouted through previous years. Have had conversations with those players in previous years, like scouts, obviously, and maybe even assistant GMs. But this is this is more confirming what they've already seen. And I would say that the meetings that the teams have with the players, whether it be formal or informal, is probably more important than anything you'll actually watch take place on NFL Network when you're watching the drills being displayed, that when the players are on the field at Lucas Oil Stadium. They already kind of know about what kind of a 40 this receiver is going to run, or that running back is going to run. They already kind of have a good feel for what arm length that defensive tackle is going to have, or what hand size that quarterback is going to have. They, more than anything, need to understand more about who they are as a person, what, and have that meeting with them in person. And so I think that's pretty big. Really quick to hit on some news. I want to get your opinion here on the new tight end the Steelers just signed.
Parham.
Donald. I was going to say Darnold. I got Sam Darnold on the brain. Donald Parham. 6'8" tight end. He's got 4 years of playing time with the Chargers. What are your thoughts on adding him to the mix?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, he'll stand out at camp for sure.
Yeah.
Certainly not guaranteed to make the team.
No.
I mean, I don't know that he's not a Michael Pruitt 1-for-1 replacement or anything like that. He's just an interesting guy to get eyes on. The size will obviously stand out, but don't think he's Darnell Washington as a blocker. Well, I mean, he's a receiver, red zone, throw it up high and he'll grab it type guy. He's bounced around the league a little, but I mean, they're not paying anything for him. There's nothing guaranteed. So cool. See what happens.
6'8", 237 pounds,
right.
a good 70 pounds less than Darnell Washington. So
and he reflects it in his play.
Yeah. So he is not another Darnell Washington, but either way. So let's take a break real quick, and when we come back, we're going to dive into Steelers free agency a little bit more because we got some news this week that is pretty good news for everybody, but also the Steelers as well. So we'll be right back right after this.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
The NFL this week sent a memo to teams to give them a better idea to plan ahead of the combine. They didn't give them the exact salary cap figure, but they did give them a $4 million window estimate between $277 million to $281 million. And when you include that for the Steelers, that the fact that they rolled over $6.8 million from last year's salary, they've got an estimated anywhere between $58.3 to $62.3 million in cap space.
Yeah.
Now, it's been a long time since I think maybe the Steelers have never had that amount of cap space going into a free agency period. I don't know. I haven't really looked back into it, but at least in recent years, I can't think of a time in which the Steelers had this kind of cap space. So how do you best use that?
So let's address it. The first part of it is, I don't think it affects the Steelers as much as those teams like the Saints that were so bad off cap wise. You know, that there won't be as hellish for those teams to get cap compliant and they get their draft pick signed and things like that. So, I mean, it's all relative. Everybody gets more monopoly money to play with. So obviously the players benefit. If I'm, Trey Smith or whoever, Sam Darnold, I'm looking at it like, oh, maybe I'll get an extra $1 million that I wouldn't have, 2 days ago. And Chris, you're younger than me, but I think you're smart enough to realize that it also means that the league is very healthy. I mean, the two things to look at in terms of health of the league are salary cap and the value of the franchises. So makes me happy that we cover this sport and not bowling or bass fishing or something like that. I mean, like, times are good. And maybe to eventually get to our pockets, who knows? But a lot of trickle down for that to happen. We know how that works. But as for the Steelers' money, quarterback aside, I mean, that's 10 podcasts worth of conversation. Some of it's going to quarterback, and maybe 2 of them are going to quarterback. We also have to have a backup. I mean, so they need to fill out an entire room. Maybe there's a draft pick involved, but I can't imagine it's Allen as your number 2 at league minimum. I mean, and somebody, the number 2 is going to have to be somewhat substantial too, 3 to 8 million, maybe, who knows? I don't know about you, but I would be very interested in bringing back a Landon Roberts. I mean, some small in-house stuff. I want to bring back Herbig as my swing interior guy. Neither of which I think comes close to breaking the bank. And I don't know why both players wouldn't be thrilled to do it, especially Herbig with his brother here. And I want that depth, and I don't want to worry about that position. They also have a lot of flexibility to make a lot more cap space if they want. I don't know that Holcomb is safe for Ogunjobi, and we could go down a list on those guys too. So they can get a lot more. Patterson, he's in trouble. A lot of those guys are, and there's could be restructures or a Watt extension, so they could get to the moon if they wanted. Where I would like to spend money outside the organization, I'll start small, but I wouldn't mind, and I don't know who this name is. I've just been thinking about this recently. An offensive tackle that's been around the block. That's a true 3. He's not a starter. It's not Dan Moore. I'm talking like $4 million, 32 years old. Leader in the room with Siamalu, just to be a third guy, and that's a small one. I would absolutely be very interested in either trading for a receiver or preferably one of the guys that gets cut, Cup, Debo, somebody like that. But my number one item outside of quarterback is I would like to spend money on a starting corner.
Yes, 100%.
Number one. Yeah.
It's a good free agency class too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of
cornerback. Yeah. Travarius Ward, I think, is a really good fit for what the Steelers want to do.
It's a good name.
He can play both man and zone. The Steelers like to do. Obviously, they're primarily a cover 3 defense, which is obviously zone coverage, but the Steelers do like to dabble, preferably like to dabble with a good amount of man coverage, whether it be cover 1 or cover 0 or you know, when the rare times that any teams nowadays run cover 2 man, but they do like to run man coverage. Typically, I'd say more than half the league. And that would give them the option to do that. They didn't really have that option as often last year because while Joey Porter Jr. is obviously a good man coverage corner, Dante Jackson is not. He is definitely more of a zone coverage corner. And so I think
they have to get better than him.
Yes.
And I want Trice to be my number 3 outside corner.
Yes, absolutely. Right. And Trice is another guy who, again, probably better in man coverage, has the tool and the tools and the skill set to be that type of an outside guy. But also there are going to be options both in the draft and in free agency when it comes to slot corner, and they need to address that too. And I don't think that there's ever been a time in league history, because people hear slot corner and they think that that's something far down the list in terms of priorities. I think it's becoming more and more and more of an actual priority here. And like, because it
brings the room together.
For a lot of teams, though, it is one of their starting 11. For the Eagles, the Super Bowl champions, they run primarily out of a nickel defense. So 5 defensive backs on the field. Their slot corner is one of their starters.
Oh yeah, Dejan, Brian Branch, these type of guys, right?
Yes. Yeah. So you got to have one of those guys.
That can't be your weakest position every year.
No,
you know, right.
Yeah, and so that's got to be addressed. Again, you could find a really good guy in the draft, probably. There are a few different options there, but there are also going to be options in free agency. If you have to pay $8 to $10 million to per year to get that guy, like that sounds like a lot for a slot corner. But if you lock down that position and it helps you take away the middle of the field and it helps support you, if you guys want to see Minka get back to playing Minka ball again, you got to have some corners who can lock down the coverage on the outside and in the slot. Otherwise, Minka is going to have to be, as you like to put it, he's going to continue to be a firefighter and not really be able to be the ball hawk he's really bred to be. And so, I'm glad that you said corner.
My favorite slot corner.
Who's that?
Hobbs from the Raiders.
Yes,
he's not and I'm not looking for another Beanie Bishop size slot. I mean, just because he's little. You can get those guys in the 5th, 6th round, and I'm fine with Bishop being in Latrobe, and maybe he makes a team, and that's okay. I mean, he's a success story. But the other thing that people don't know, but should by now, so many safeties have slot capabilities too.
Yes,
and that is such a help against the run. You know, if you're McVay and Shanahan and these super smart guys, they want Derrick Henry being tackled by Beanie Bishop. You know what I mean? It's not hard to do. It's not hard to
and so I agree, and I'm glad you said cornerback, because I do think it is
money on a corner.
100%. Somebody,
there's a lot of names, Murphy, and one I like down the list is Adebo from the Saints. So he'd be a lot cheaper than some of the other names. I love the Ward name you mentioned. Carlton Davis is sort of interesting. I mean, there's plenty of them, as you mentioned. It's a pretty good market to go looking for.
A comment here from Dwight here watching live. The Steelers need a caked up defensive tackle. I just think that adding to the defensive tackle position is going to be a priority for this team. Now, I think that their home run swing for adding to that position this offseason is going to be in the draft.
Me too.
That could be 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round. They're like one of the first 2 days of the draft, they're most likely going to be taking a defensive tackle. And so
I think they might take 2.
It's very possible.
3-4 end in the nose.
Yeah. I mean, because if you're talking about 1st round, looking at Kenneth Grant, if he's there at 21 and he really kind of qualifies as the best player available. And if Ashton Genty's gone and Emeka Egbuka's gone and Walter Nolan's gone, maybe Kenneth Grant is the best option there. And so you kind of get more of your nose guy in the 1st round. Now that sounds kind of crazy, taking a nose tackle in the 1st round.
Talk to me after he works out in Indy and tell me if it's crazy.
Exactly.
But he runs a 4.8 at 350 pounds, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was doing a lot of homework on some of these guys this week, and I do think that a guy like Kenneth Grant,
if I had to bet right this second who the 21st pick in the draft to be, it would be Grant.
I
don't think Nolan will last.
No, I think he's gonna. When I did my first mock after the Senior Bowl, I had Walter Nolan at 21. But the more and more time has gone on, even since the Senior Bowl, his draft stock has continued to rise. And I don't think he gets past Cincinnati. I think they're picking 17th. Yeah. I don't think he gets past Cincinnati.
He just looks like DT2 in this class.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of landing spots between 21 that could derail that.
Yeah. I think
but if they were to land like a Nolan in the first round,
oh yeah.
I mean, third or fourth round noses, there's a ton of them too. I mean,
let me we'll get back to free agency here in a second, but let me throw something out at you, because there was a mock this week that had this guy going to the Steelers at 21. I don't think this is happening at all. I don't think he gets past the Cowboys at 12. But if Ashton Genty is there at 21, are you running to the podium regardless if who else is on the board?
9 out of 10 times, if we had this conversation about a running back in this situation, I would say no. And I'm not making fun of Kevin Colbert because I know he used a first-round pick on a running back.
Right.
I don't think Omar, as a cap guy, believes in that at all.
Yep.
But I think Genty's the best player in the draft.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were just grading not position value, who's the best football player in the draft?
Yeah.
I'll take him at 21. Yeah. And I'll give him the ball a lot.
Yeah, and that's why I said, because I'm kind of glad that this kind of came up naturally, because like because of what happened with Najee Harris, because of taking him in the first round, Steelers fans are so adamant to not take a running back in the first round, and
they act like he's a huge bust. I mean, he was useful. It wasn't like it was a wasted pick.
It wasn't a bust. I wouldn't say that he lived up to the hype of a first round pick, but he definitely was not a bust.
Definitely not.
But at the same time, I kind of understand the maybe disappointment with the fact that he didn't turn into more.
I get it. Right.
I'll empathize and understand that perspective. But that's not. And
Chris, as you know too, this class is so loaded at running back.
It is.
I want to take one in the fourth and fifth. But if it's the best player in the draft at 21, I'll take him.
That's kind of the point. And I think people just look at this in terms of it's black and white. You don't take a running back in the first round. I'm sorry. Saquon, like, you don't take a running back in the first round, but much less first overall. Saquon Barkley was a first overall pick, and look at him. Like, if it's the right guy, shoot, man, if he's there at 18, I might trade up 3 spots and steal him away.
They're going to run the ball a lot.
Yes, like this dude is
and he's a receiver,
is unreal. He's a good zone runner. Arthur Smith would be salivating if the Steelers somehow walked away with him in night 1. It's not going to happen. But
I hate some comparisons because people are like, "Who's he remind you of?" Oh, he's some kind of a mix between Travis Kelce and Rob Gronkowski. But the comp that I heard for Genty that I think is accurate is LaDainian Tomlinson.
Okay, good. Because that's exactly what
I
was
thinking.
thinking.
LT at 21? Yeah, he'll take LT at 21.
That's what I was thinking. Which is, again, I don't think he gets past the Cowboys at 12. I think the Cowboys you would think that they learned their lesson about not prioritizing running back. I mean, I understand not like selling out and investing a boatload of money, but they completely ignored. I mean, what was it, Rico Dowdy or whatever the frick his name is? Yeah. So come on. Yeah, you have to have a running back. And I don't think he gets past the Cowboys at 12. If he doesn't even get taken in the top 10. Yeah. But anyway, so the reason why I even said the thing about the combine and how it plays a role in free agency is this week or next week in Indianapolis. This is when a lot of the routes for trades kind of begin to take root.
There's a lot of backroom dealing and Izzies and right. Absolutely.
And like I said, agents are also in Indianapolis. Every single one of them. And so, teams can't talk with agents, but you might
Sure.
see a little bit more traction regarding Justin Fields, possibly, or maybe the other way around. Maybe his agent, David Mulugeta, is in Indianapolis, and him and Omar Khan just happen to have a conversation for an hour or 2 hours or however long. And then all of a sudden, a few days into the combine or a couple days after everybody leaves Indianapolis, the Steelers re-sign Justin Fields. I don't know. I'm not saying
Things
that's going to
start
happen.
happening soon.
Right.
Yeah.
And
the
so,
cuts start coming and, salary cap and stuff. And right.
So this is when you're going to start to see the action pick up. And so when
they've been in lockdown these last couple of weeks. I mean, they're building their plan. They're putting their preliminary draft reports in. People are in the area. Scouts have been in Pittsburgh doing their stuff. They've been kind of building the plan, and now it's time to execute it.
Yeah. And so, this is, and I think that's what some people are like, well, why isn't Justin Fields signed? This obviously plays a role into the cap space situation because, they've got $60 million in cap space right now. And they can, if they sign Justin Fields to 2 years, $30 million, whatever it is, it's like, okay, well, you have a better idea of what kind of cap space you're going to have going into free agency. But at the same time, that's not what they're doing right now. I'm not saying they're not talking or they're not trying to, continue to have any kind of feel for what, where Justin is and with his situation. But at the same time, they've got to put a plan together. They have to, have all of those internal conversations. Art Rooney II, Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, Andy Weidel, all those guys have to have those conversations. And that's what happens between the end of the season. Once they kind of get the coaching staff situated, and it seems like it is, we've had 2 coaching changes.
That seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
is Matthew Stafford really available? I mean,
right.
Lawrence obviously wasn't, but I mean, what are all of our options? Let's build the plan.
Yeah. And so it's figuring out your options. It's figuring out where you want to, what you want to prioritize. It's like, okay, we're going to, by the time, they get to the end of this week, they're going to be like, all right, you know what? We're going gung ho. We're going to re-sign Justin Fields. Yeah. Like that's going to be the
priority number one.
Whatever the plan is, I'm not saying that's what the plan is. I don't know. Probably we'll be finding out a lot more about that next week. But, this is when the plans are being built. And so, and that's one of the reasons why the NFL sent that memo to teams this week to give them a really good idea of like, okay, here's not an exact number, but here's a nice little tight $4 million window. It will be in this little $4 million window. And that gives teams a really good idea of where the cap's going to be. And now they can go into Indianapolis and get all the work done. It needs.
Now the wheels start going in motion, right?
Yeah. And I'm excited. I'm excited for this is the second most dead period of the off season. The other dead period is obviously between minicamp and training camp when literally everybody leaves.
Creating content this week is harder than you would expect.
Yes, it is.
But
that's why I pounded out on our site a 2,700 word column on how the Steelers have fallen into this, I guess, stale era. And it's obviously primarily, and I put everything on the quarterback situation, and you have to have a quarterback. And that's the bottom line. And if you want to go read it, it's on DKPittsburghSports.com right now. So, all right, well, we're going to go and wrap this up. But Matt, any final thoughts as we head into Combine Week? It's going to be a busy week. It's going to be a fun week. But any final thoughts that you have on what this team either needs to prioritize, whether it comes to free agency or whether it comes to some of their internal free agents? I didn't talk about like Landon Roberts and those guys, but anything else that like really needs to
One note I would just tell people that has a lot of value in Indy on the field is I always call it assembly line scouting. It's nice to see one after another in the exact same environment and the exact same track speed. And, it's not a pro day with wind on a 38, yard track that's downhill, there is something to see 20 quarterbacks throw in a row, or all the defensive backs do W drills and things in a row, or, bag drills, etc. I think there is a lot of value to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the one thing that I'm really looking forward to about the Combine for sure is, again, getting to, I make it a point every day to, like, when I'm not writing, when all the things kind of happen in the morning with the player availabilities, and early next week, Omar Khan's going to talk. And so when I'm not writing, whenever we're not having to report anything, I like to just walk around. I like to walk around the convention center. I like to walk around kind of outside the convention center, just kind of walk around and meander around, because you never know who you're going to run into. You never know when you're going to run into the, this position coach or that scout or this agent, and you can, strike up a conversation. Hey, what's going on? And you find out a lot of information. That's honestly probably my favorite part of the week. Is not even anything to do with the draft. It's nothing, obviously nothing against any of the players. Of course, I'm really looking forward to seeing somebody like Kenneth Grant in person.
Yeah, right.
Just to see like what kind of a mammoth human being he is that can move insanely well. I'm excited to see that in person, but at the same time, I'm really looking forward to learning a lot more about this class, about the upcoming free agency situation, and of course what the Steelers want to do. And so that's my favorite part of the week.
Yep. Stop by Radio Row. There's a lot going on, dude. Right.
Yeah.
On the air too. Right.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. We really appreciate you guys listening. Next week is very up in the air when it comes to whether we're going to do a show or not. Friday is definitely off the table. Matt's on the air and then immediately driving back to Indianapolis. So if we do a show next week, it'll be from Indianapolis, and it'll probably be some obscure time during the day. But it'll get done if it's done next week, it'll get done earlier in the week. If not, we will do a show the week after. And we talked about the possibility of doing a mock draft after the combine too. So
I'm up for it.
Yeah. So we'll see. Either way, really appreciate you guys tuning in. Until then, we'll catch you guys in a flippity flip. We'll see you later.